All right. Welcome to Buy or Burn. This is episode number 5. So I got a friend of mine, Kale, sent me a property he wanted me to analyze. So that's what I'm going to do today. We're going to be analyzing this property here in Huron, South Dakota. So hopefully uh, it'll be a good time. I don't know anything about Huron. So let's just get right into it here. It's called Bear Lane Apartments, 46 unit apartment building for $2,400,000. That's $52,174 a unit. That seems like a pretty good price right off the bat. 8.2%, 8.02% cap rate. That's good. That's good. I've been telling you guys that with the way that the interest rates are these days, then you want about an 8 cap. And there's not a lot of those available. There's not a lot that you can find where the seller is willing to go that low on the price. So usually, you have to offer 25, 30% less than what the seller's asking if you're trying to get a deal. So let's go through this here and see what we have. They look pretty decent on the outside. Like they've done some work to them. They're probably older. Looking at this brick and how they're the garden style, where this half of this unit here is sunk underground. So it's called garden style when it's like that. So you have to go down probably 6 or 8 steps to get into these apartments and then up 6 or 8 steps to get into these apartments. They also have these through the wall AC units. So that usually indicates an older property, not always, but usually. But this brick here looks like it's from the 70s. But it looks like they put some new siding on them, tried to make them look more of a modern style. Looks all right. Looks like we have some common area stuff out here. Picnic table. Walkway, I don't know. Parking lot's probably out here somewhere maybe. So let's see. Okay. Little walkway in between the two buildings with a roof over it. So that's kind of nice, I guess. Okay, there's multiple buildings. So it looks like there are eight plexes, probably. 4 back here and 4 up here. They look like they all match. Be curious to know if they did new windows too. That would be a big upgrade. All right. Not much more to see on the outside there. Okay, now we're on the inside. These are the original cabinets that they've painted. So we'd want to take a closer look at that to see how good of a job they did. They look decent. So it looks like the original countertop here. New appliances, new stainless steel appliances. So that's nice. It's a little living room. So they're not that big of units. It's got some nice vinyl plank flooring in there. Neutral colors. Looks like white walls. Oh, so this is in the basement here. Then they've got a block wall here. It's not drywalled, and neither is this wall. So these are the exterior walls. They're not, doesn't look like they're insulated and drywalled. So that may or may not be an issue. The ground goes to about right here. So they're not fully out of the ground exposed. But probably gets a little chilly in this room, I would guess. Okay. Bathroom here. I guess I should do it this way. Looks decent. They've got an upgraded cabinet with a sink and faucet here, it looks like. Can't see the shower. Hopefully there's one with that pulled back so we can see in there. Looks like this is the original light here. Medicine cabinet. Not much to see there. Oops. Oh, am I done already? Okay. That's the end of the pictures. So let's see what we've got going on here. 6 two-story buildings with garden view, new siding in 2022, asphalt both parking lots in May 22, boiler heat and window air conditioning. So that boiler heat, that's something we'd want to look into. You know, how old is this thing? How maintained has it been? Because that could be a really expensive fix. So also what that means, boiler heat's good heat, so it's keeping everybody warm. That's for sure. But what that means is that you as the owner pay for all of it. The window air they would pay for because it'd be in their electricity bill. But this boiler heat, since everything is on one and each building is going to have their own boiler, so that's 6 boilers that you have. So we definitely would want to inspect something like that and make sure that it's in good condition, or if it's not, what would it get costs on what it would be to replace it, because that could be a huge expense down the line. All utilities included in rent except cable and internet. So that's not very enjoyable. I don't like that. But so you got, not only is the boiler heat, all the heating you're paying for, but you're also paying for all their electricity. All of it. Okay, so they're not apparently metered separately, just the building probably is metered. And so, but what we will look for here is, are they recouping any of that utility cost? As we've looked at in the past, a lot of these properties will have the ratio utility billing, the RUBS, or they'll just charge a flat utility fee, like $60 a month. But that's usually just for water, sewer, trash. This is much more expensive. Your heat, your electricity on one of these is probably going to run around $80 to $100 a month. So you would probably, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but you'd probably want to have like $100 to $150, probably like $100 to $150 monthly utility fee back to the tenant. So we'll see if they're doing that already, or what they've all got going on. So this is a pro forma here, 2025 pro forma. So don't let it fool you that this is what they're actually doing right now. Okay, 387 taxes. So they're saying you could make 192,000 a year on this. Seems high to me right off the bat. So hopefully they'll give us their real numbers. 46 units. So not sure exactly what the breakdown of these would be since there's 6 buildings. So we'll have to get and do a little closer look. Built in 1970. So it's older, but looks like it's been decently taken care of. All right, so what do we have here? We've got 11 studios. Okay. 33 one beds and 2 beds. So mostly 1 bedrooms and studios. So these are smaller units. The 2 bedrooms are pretty big, actually. Okay, Huron. So let's just where is Huron, South Dakota? Okay. What's the population here? 14,000. So it's decently sized. The population has actually grown by 250 people in 4 years. Just want to see if it's around anything, any large population. So it's a ways from Sioux Falls and Brookings and Pierre. kind of out on its own there, and kind of in the middle of nowhere. But 15,000 population, that's not bad. That's a decent sized town. That's larger than I was expecting. So I probably wouldn't be all that hesitant to invest in something like this. If I lived close to it, I would definitely recommend looking into this for somebody who lives around that area. So let's get into the financials here and see what we've got going on. Okay. Let's see, anything new in here? Asphalt, boiler heat. Doesn't say anything. So they highlighted the new things, right? So new siding in 22, new asphalt in 22. They didn't they I wish they would have said new boilers as well. That would have been nice. So makes me think that maybe they're a bit older. All right, let's take a look at this rent roll. Mostly studios and one beds. So let's see. Studio for 625, one bed for 750. 750, 625, 700 for the smaller one beds, it looks like. 750, 6. These are all very similar numbers, which makes me think that this is a pro forma rent roll. I would want to see the actual rent roll with the actual leases and the lease end dates, because I'm guessing these one bedrooms, they're probably, 550 or something. Because this is probably a potential. Let's find out, I guess. Okay. 387,600. That's what their pro forma rent is. 387,600. So yeah, these are possible rents. This is not what they're getting right now. Okay. Don't let them fool you. This is not what they're renting for currently, but this is what they could rent for. Now, a one bedroom for $750, that's not bad. That's pretty cheap. So I don't feel like they're really overinflating what the market could sustain. But we would want to know exactly what they're getting currently, because if you were to take over, that would be the actual rent you'd be bringing in, and then you'd still have your mortgage and all your payments. So you wouldn't want to be underwater right after you buy it. Okay. So this has got a weird little note. It says that building apartment 204 is tied to 104. The studio is tied to this one. So I would want to look into that. What's going on there? And this one's the same in this building. Oh, whoops, sorry. Those are in the same building. Okay, so each building has the same numbers. I didn't notice that. So 204 here is tied to 104 here. So, okay, it's a 2-bedroom with 204. That's how they get to 46 units. Okay, I was wondering why it wasn't 48. So they combine and made some 2-beds. So they just weren't built with 2 beds, but they took the small 1-bedrooms and or 1-bedrooms and a 1-bedroom and a studio and combined it into a 2-bed. Okay, that makes sense. So they got the same thing going on here. All right. Okay, so now you're getting $1,000 for 2 apartments, which you could have been getting, $1,350 or something like that. So they're actually kind of losing money on combining those two. But it is what it is. I wouldn't probably recommend changing it, because they're probably taking the kitchens out and stuff. So it'd cost you quite a bit to turn it back into a 48. Okay, so let's take a look at the numbers here and see where they're lying to us. Okay, that's what I always am looking for. So this is a pro forma again, remember, not the actual numbers. So let's see what they think we can do here. $387,000 a year of income, 5% vacancy. It's probably an okay vacancy rate gives us $368,000 of income. Taxes, okay, 12,300. Let's just see what this thing's valued at. It's assessed for $120,000. See that? $120,000 and they have $12,000 in taxes? That doesn't make any sense. That would be 10% property tax. 10% property tax rate? No way. Something weird is going on here. Right? Because this said 12,000 as well, right? Yeah, 12,300. So let's just assume a 2% tax rate. This thing should be valued at least 615,000 or assessed for 615,000, but they've got 120. So somebody, it's like they're missing a one or something in there. Yeah. Well, let's see if we can figure out what's going on here and look it up on the assessor site. Let's see if I can find their GIS. That's where you can go. Every county has their own system where you can go in there and you can search the properties. You can usually see what they've sold for in the past. You can see what the property taxes are, what the zoning is, what the legal description is, who the owner is. So it's a very useful thing to keep in mind. If you go to GIS or, well, we'll see here if we can find it, hopefully. The tax parcel maps or whatever. There's a lot of public information on these properties that are very useful when looking. So let's see. I might have to go. Beadle County. Okay, so I'm assuming Beadle County here. Let me just, Huron is a city and county seat of Beadle County. Okay, good. So let's see here. We can find out. Hey, look, right there. GIS mapping. See that? Okay. You will be redirected to the all-new Beadle County MapNet website. Well, let's hope so. And these GIS sites are usually like pretty difficult to navigate. Like the search doesn't usually work very well, so you have to kind of mess around with the address so that you can actually find, so that it'll actually pull something up, or else it'll just error and say, "Oh, sorry, that's not a thing. We don't know what that is." So I'm just going to put the address in here and let's see what happens. I didn't think so with the range there. So let's just eliminate that. Hey, wow, that worked out. That worked out well. Okay, and then I'm going to turn on the aerial map. Okay. Yeah, so we can kind of see what we've got going on here a little bit better. Okay, so you got to see the parking lot here to the north. Southland Apartments. They're called Fairlane Apartments on ours, but Southland Apartments. Yeah, property address 1940 Wisconsin. So I got the right one. Apparently they changed the name and didn't tell the assessor or something. Okay, so you can see the owner here, Southland Apartments. owner's address. The owner lives in Brookings. They made an LLC for him, but he's from Brookings. Okay. Looks like he bought it in June of 2021. So maybe they're the ones who put the money well, they would have been, because in 2022 they did a bunch of fix up. Okay. So right now what we're looking at is just this parcel. See the line around there? So I mean, it's cutting through these buildings here, so I'm assuming it's just for this one building. Yeah. Okay, it's just for 1940 Wisconsin. These two were 1950 and 1960. Okay, so we're just looking at this one building right now. One of the things, here's something to keep in mind when you're buying properties. Then they aren't always split up in parcels like this. Now, theoretically, what you could do is you could buy this property by itself. You wouldn't have to buy all 6 buildings. You could buy just this one because it has its own parcel number. Now, if these were all one parcel number, you couldn't split them up and buy one building. So I've done deals in the past where I would buy a parcel a year, right? But I'd have a contract to buy all of them at January 1st of every year. Okay, so I could take over this one. And so actually one deal I did was I took over the whole property. I managed it. I collected all the rents. I was in total control. I got all the money. But I just bought this one parcel the first year, but I was making all the money from all the parcels. Then the next year, I bought the second parcel, so then I had a loan for 2 parcels. Then the next year, I bought the next parcel, but I was still making all the money for all the parcels. So if that makes sense. So sometimes there can be tax benefits to the seller if you buy them by parcel and then you buy the next one. Or let's say you have a parcel here and you have 2 parcels. You could buy this parcel December 31st and then this parcel January 1st. And then the seller, that would split up their proceeds. Like if they've owned them for a long time and they've got a bunch of capital gains, it would put capital gains in one year and then the other half of the capital gains in the next year. So then it wouldn't push them up into the higher tax bracket. So there's some creative ways you can do that to incentivize the seller, right? So you could propose that to the seller and say, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to save you some money, or whatever. And we're going to buy these parcels different years. That'll keep your income lower, so you don't get hammered as much on capital gains tax. Sometimes the seller might not want to do that because they might want to 1031 the whole property into another bigger property, and so they won't want to do that. But if it's somebody who's maybe getting out of the game, or they could even 1031 this one into a smaller property, then 1031 this one into a bigger property, there's a lot of different ways people like to manage their real estate investments. And so just keep that in mind. There's lots of ways to be creative. There's just always keep your mind open and keep thinking about how you can make these deals beneficial for your seller, to the seller and to yourself. So, they might be interested in a deal like that, whereas you get basically you get a master lease agreement to where you are in control of the entire property, or you just get a contract, you get it under contract and with all the stipulations. Well, oh, what happened? What the heck? What's going on? Wow, that was all glitchy. Is that better? Oh my gosh. Wow. Is that better? What in the world? That was weird. Okay, so maybe I'm moving the screen around too much or something. But anyway, as I was saying, was just be open-minded and be creative, and always be thinking about ways that you can, try to sweeten the deal for the seller while not making it less sweet for you. So if you could get control of this whole property up at the very beginning and then buy one parcel a year or even buy two parcels a year, you could make a lot of money because let's say it's bringing in $30,000 a month, but you've only got a mortgage on half of it for the first year. You might make an extra $50,000 or $60,000 that year because you don't have a mortgage on it, you know? So good thing to keep in mind. So anyway, let's keep taking a look at this and see what's going on with our property tax here. Why is it so strange? So this sold, this guy bought it in 2021, okay, for $981,700. I'm thinking this is the whole property. Okay? Even though this is basically just for this one parcel, I'm thinking that had to be for the whole property. It wouldn't be just for this one. So what's the valuation of this one? Okay, so the valuation on, oh, look, okay. See that down here? 120,000. Is that our same number? Yeah. I think that's just for this one parcel is what they put in. They should have put this in. This should have been or actually what they should do is add each parcel together. I'm thinking that's probably what the deal is. They didn't add them together. Okay, so because this is a total assessed value, here's the tax on that parcel. Okay. Whoa. I'm not even doing anything. Why does it keep? That's super annoying. Okay, enough. All right. So 2,038.58. We'll divide that by the total assessed value to get our rate. Okay, so the tax rate here in Huron for property tax is 1.68%. Okay? See that? Okay, so then 1.68. So I guess let's just okay. So that one was 2,000 for that parcel was the taxes. This one's 3,700. Okay, so now we're 5,800. Come on. This one is 2,000, so 7,800. This one's 3,700, 78. So 11,500. Let's see. Do you own this? Huh. Interesting. Okay, yeah, Southland does own it. I was just being thrown off by something here. It just says city here. Okay, so yeah, a couple $100 there. So the 12,000. Shoot, glitching out again. Okay, I gotta get out of this thing. I think it's causing problems. All right, there. I think we're good now. Still glitching? Are we good? All right. Yeah, I think that website was causing problems for my stream. Sorry about that, guys. But anyway, basically what we figured out was that this 12,300 is the actual property taxes currently. Okay. So I want to find out so it's a 1.68 tax rate. So what's this thing currently valued at? It's currently valued at 732,000. So that could if you bought this thing for a couple $1,000,000, that could double. Okay, so their pro forma really should reflect what they think the actual reality will be if you buy this. They are doing it with the income, right? But they're not doing it with the taxes. They never do it with the taxes. I don't know why this is so like complicated for people, but for agents, why you wouldn't just do this. You don't know exactly what the assessor's going to how the assessor is going to change the valuation, but you know sure as hell know it's going to go up from that. If it sold for 900,000 something in 2021, this is a strong potential for this property taxes to double. So I would just count on it doubling. It's not going to be in year 1, it's not going to be in year 2, probably year 3, that would be put it valued at 1.5 million. I mean, that's probably what they're going to do. So we need to keep that in mind, that we need to add that into our expenses here. Okay, insurance, 11,000. Okay, we'd want to look into what they have it insured for at that rate, because it's probably only insured for $1 million. So we'd have to increase that. So that might increase by 50%. I'd probably just put that in my numbers. Okay, management, I would want to look more into this, obviously. And that's at 9%. So that's an accurate ratio there. But what exactly are we getting for our $33,000? I would want to know. I would want to know in detail. Is this a full-time employee? Is this a management company? Are they, who's doing all this? Now, if you could probably institute some technology, maybe get that down a little bit, or I would want to know what the manager or the management company has for technology. Repairs and maintenance, 32,000. So they're under $3,000 a month. Maybe I'd like to see what their current repairs and maintenance is, and why they think it could be this. All right. Supplies, whatever that means. I don't know. It's hard to know what that would even mean, because I suppose cleaning supplies maybe or something. Miscellaneous, another 2,500. So just kind of like making shit up, basically, is what they're doing there. A reserve of 2%. So just a contingency reserve of, $600, $700 a month, $600 a month. Utilities. Shit. $75,000 a year on utilities. Holy crap. Wow. Yeah. You got to figure out how to get this up in here somehow. That is massive. Massive. Okay. Huh. Well, let's just say you institute $100 a month across the board utility fee. That would help you recoup 55,000, and I don't think people would think it was ridiculous. To have a $750 apartment that's all utilities included. Wow, that seems way too cheap. Way too cheap. Huh. Yeah. I mean, if you could get rid of some of this, wow. Now you're in a great position. So we're going to think more about what we could do there. Let's take a look and see 192,000 of net operating income they think you could get off of this thing. Let's see. What's that give us for a loan? Okay, that's 16,000 a month at their asking price. Basically 17,000. So what's that a year? 203. So with their pro forma, mind you, this isn't the actual numbers. I always like to remind you that this is their guess. This is their best case scenario made up numbers. At full price purchase, it does not pay for itself 100% financed because you would need 203,000. So you're short 10,000. Okay. Now, but we need to add back in, we need to subtract from that we're probably going to double in our property taxes. Our insurance might go up by 5. So let's do 17,000 there. Okay. So now we're down to 175. Okay. Now we're down to 175. So we need our payment to be closer to 14,500 in our best case scenario. Now I guarantee you they're not making this. I would say they're probably, if I were to guess, because they're not even trying to recoup this utility, their rents are probably lower than they should be. Maybe their rents are, let's say, let's say 10% lower. So $37,000. Let's say 38,000. So they're bringing in 330. That's why the real numbers that actually, I can't believe that they never give us the real numbers. Or that's so often. They're just like, oh, here's some made up shit that we think you should like. Okay. Well, what's the real numbers? They're probably not even their net operating income right now is probably not even 150,000. And here they're telling us it can be $42,000 more. Basically $1,000 an apartment more you're going to make. Well, then do that. Why aren't you doing that, seller? Okay. So what would we need to pay in order for our payment to be about $14,000? It probably could be close to $2 million. Yeah. Okay. So around $2 million, which is not bad. This thing would pay for itself. And we know that the sellers paid 900 something, let's say 950 for it. They put in the new siding. They did the asphalt. So maybe they have 100,000 there. So they're into it for $1.50 million. So $2 million would be a pretty sweet deal probably for them. So I probably wouldn't even offer that. I'd probably try 1.5, 1.7, something like that. And I would definitely do something about this utilities. I mean, that is a game changer. If you can recoup some of that. So I wish I had like a notepad or something I could bring up on here to put our numbers on. But let's say that you can, let's, I guess, be conservative and say you do a $50 a month fee for everybody, which is still low. It would be an easy thing to sell the people on. Like, this is the bill for your heating, for your AC, for all your electricity. This is for the water. This is for the sewer. This is for the trash. Yeah, right. Like a whole list of utilities is what this is paying for, and it only costing you $50 a month for all those utilities. That would be easy to convince people that it makes sense. So even conservatively, if you could make $27,000 of this back, that would offset, the increases here and probably the lower income that they're making here than what they're saying. So, if you could raise the rents like this, 5% vacancy, and these will double. So 17,000, cut this by $10,000 ultimately, you're making 200 grand. So this is where you could build some real, so now it's worth 2,500. So you get it for 1,750. Okay. You get it for 1,750 after you look at their actual numbers and you're making a valuation off of that. And you say, this, look, this is, this is what you're currently bringing in. I'm not going to go off these speculations that you think this is what we can get. You're not getting them. So why would I buy based on that? I'm going to buy based on your real numbers. I'm give you 1.7 or something around there. You, they, so you're making maybe a couple $1,000. You're in the black a couple $1,000 a month. So that's not a bad situation. That's a good situation. Um, this is a good deal. I think this looks like a really good deal. I would definitely consider looking into this more for sure. I would want the real numbers. I would want to know more about the management situation. I would want to get a clearer picture on what the current repairs and maintenance are. Um, and I would definitely try for the utility thing. I think you could probably raise the rents and institute a utility fee. You still got super cheap rent. The rent's still really good deal. I mean, if you're paying 650 plus 50 for one bed, you're only paying $700. I would probably try for more like $100 a month, $95 a month utility fee or something like that, because it covers so much: water, sewer, trash, electricity, and heating. That is wild. Okay, yeah. So I think there's a lot of potential with this for sure. A lot of potential. So this is a buy, not a burn. This is a buy. Definitely one we want to look into more. Um, yeah, for sure. So thanks, Kale, for sending this to me. This was a lot of fun. I think that we should chat more about this and see what you're thinking, and see what, maybe if you want to move forward, and how we could maybe do some more analysis, maybe look at the actual numbers and talk those over. So, um, okay, well, that's it for that property. So that would be on my buy list. It would be challenging because it's in a small town, kind of in the middle of nowhere. So you probably don't really have much for management. Um, so if something goes wrong, if you're trying to find tenants, you'd really be relying on your manager, not necessarily apartments.com and things like that to find renters. Probably a sign out front, and maybe an ad in the Facebook or something like that. So, um, all right, well, this is one where somebody could make some money. So it's nice to see that finally. I normally don't get to do ones that actually work out. Normally all this shit's way overpriced. So the Midwest is a good place to look if you're looking for deals. Um, a lot of cities, even in the Midwest, have stuff that's pretty much overpriced. They're in like four caps and stuff like that. They just haven't adjusted their expectations to the new interest rate environment. The interest rates are not going to come down all that much, in my opinion. We would be lucky to see 25-year commercial loans come down to 6. That would be probably not realistic even, but they're probably going to be 6.5. Maybe they'll come down to 6, even as the Fed has lowered the rate. The mortgage rates really haven't changed all that much on commercial. So hopefully if they got back into the 5s, I think you'd see a buying frenzy. People would be really interested in buying at those numbers because some of these valuations start to make more sense. Now if you, depending on how risky you want to get, you could buy something like, let's say this, at a 7% rate, and plan on refinancing hopefully in a couple years when the rates go down. And you could figure out what those numbers would be and how much that would save you, and if that would make you more money. Um, Yeah. Okay. So something to keep in mind there too. There's always a lot of ways that you can try to make a deal, and you can be creative in how you try to do that. So I would probably recommend looking into this one further for sure. Probably having the agent walk me through a couple units on his phone. I would probably ask a lot of questions about the current management and how that's going, and if the person wants to stay on or if they're wanting to be done. Maybe the manager is a partial owner. You don't really know, but this definitely seems like one that would be workable. Um, they already started out pretty conservative with their numbers. They didn't try to trick us too much. If anything, the property tax increase is more of a thought people don't think of. So it probably wasn't intentional, but you have to really pay attention to these pro formas. You don't want to just go with what they're saying and act like that's the truth. So they don't seem over the top ridiculous. So I would definitely put this on my list. So, all right. Hope that was helpful, and we'll talk to you again.